In Montana, an unlikely group of allies is working together to preserve a unique prairie ecosystem. And at the same time, their work is helping their own rural economies. Stan Parker of Montana PBS takes us to one of the planet's last remaining intact grasslands.
In central Montana, family ranchers are stepping up to protect the grasslands and their rural way of life.
This is one of the last really great intact grasslands left in the world.
Grasslands provide habitat for hundreds of wildlife species that need this particular ecosystem to survive.
For ranchers like the Nolans, grassland conservation is about survival.
What it comes down to is if we're not taking good care of the land, we're not going to be here anymore.
On a hot day in August, Laura Nolan and her kids, Jack and Anna, are tearing out some old fences. They'll replace them with a different type that allows migrating animals to pass through safely.
So the bottom wire is high enough for an antelope to go under, and then the top wire is low enough for the deer and the elk to go over, and then there's a space between the first and second wires that the sage grouse can go through.
The federal government is helping pay for this project. It's one example of a conservation trend that's been gaining steam in recent years. Major environmental nonprofits and government agencies are expanding financial incentives to help family ranchers protect this vast grassland ecosystem. With a population under 200, the small town of Winnett is playing an outsized role in this work, thanks in large part to a local group called ACES, or Agricultural Community Enhancement and Sustainability. Laura Nolan helped start the organization.
In a nutshell, ACES is a group of people who care about Winnett specifically, but central Montana more broadly and rural communities even more broadly.
The group makes conservation projects, like this stream restoration, possible by linking local ranchers with funding and sometimes volunteer labor. And the work comes with some unexpected alliances, says rancher Bill Milton.
20, 30 years ago, a group like the Nature Conservancy or World Wildlife Fund or Audubon, these are traditionally perceived by ranchers as the enemy.
Those were organizations definitely that we feared before we got to know more about them.
Today, their goals are aligned.
Over time, the sort of mainstream environmental groups realize most of this ground that supports this wildlife is privately owned. So if you're in a conflict with a person who's providing most of the habitat for what you think is important, you either got to beat them, put them out of business, turn it all into a park, or you have to form an alliance with them.
We've met a lot of traditional and non-traditional partners in this adventure that we're on.
I think people sometimes are surprised that World Wildlife Fund has a program that works with ranchers.
Alexis Bonagovsky raises sheep near Billings, and she manages the Sustainable Ranching Initiative for World Wildlife Fund.
If a rancher wants to change their grazing practices to, for example, give more rest to a certain area on their ranch every year, then World Wildlife Fund is able to help them with infrastructure costs to make that possible.
We're all kind of meeting in the middle here because we do have these common goals. And part of that too is we have to not always be so defensive as ranchers and landowners too, and we can improve what we're doing and we should improve where we can.
These ranchers and wildlife organizations are also working together to help the small towns that support ranching.
We know that supporting these communities and the work that they're doing is the only way we will protect the Northern Great Plains ecosystem. The conservation work isn't separate from the community work.
And it demonstrates to people who are still, I think, in the ranch community, a little bit askance at I don't trust these guys, They're really, in the end, they're really coming out to get us. And I just don't believe that anymore because the evidence of people's actions are a lot more credible than people's projections of what they think they are.
One of those team efforts, restoring a historic building on Main Street, turning it into an ice cream parlor, coffee shop, apartment, and community gathering space.
We all know that rural America in many places has been struggling, and I think we're finding that don't wait for some white horse to come galloping over the ridge to help you. If you want to create something better, you're going to have to take a role in creating that.
For PBS News Weekend, I'm Stan Parker in Winnett, Montana.